most iconic ladies of our industry, and to speak about Greece, about the future of wellness, and about people who actually are the most important asset in companies today and, of course, in the future. We're going to speak about love, empathy, leadership, and any question that will come up from the audience, more than happy. So, Sol Taylors, which is who's a company member of the Eurotel Group in Greece, started last week a series of talks to try to speak with wellness pioneers and innovators from all around the world in order to try and convince and educate people in Greece in order to invest and believe more in wellness. As Greek, I'm proud because I can see Mia Kirikos, who has her roots in Greece, and also Frank in our audience. And I saw that there is a gap. There is a gap in Greece, and the next years, I think there is an opportunity for Greece to transform the wellness tourism product. And I think that through these talks, and you, Mia, Susan, Andrew, all over for the world, wellness pioneers will help us and support us to do that. So today, we're going to speak about people's operations, love, empathy, and leadership. And we have invited Mrs. Susan Harmsworth and Mrs. Mia Kirikos to discuss and have a nice talk about all these elements that will change our life over the next years. Here, I'd like to make a very short introduction about Susan. It will tell more during our talk. Mrs. Susan Harmsworth is an inspirational and visionary leader over the past 45 years. But I can see, Sue, that you're younger than me, which wellness means that makes you really, really feel well. And she founded the global brand ESPA, designed more like hundreds of spas all around the world, 500, 600, you can tell us. And she's currently is advising a lot of destination wellness resorts around the world. And she's also a non-executive director on several boards and advises private equity companies and innovating new products. And about Mia, we've spoken in the past many times, the last, 5, 6 years. And I saw that your Greek blood is there. You're very enthusiastic, and you have this Mediterranean spirit, and this is good. And you started your career into the hospitality industry from Canyon Ranch, and then you moved to Exhale, and then to Starwood, and then you went to Spafinder, and at the last 2 years you're in the Hyatt as a senior vice president. And now you have your own company, Mia Kirikos and Associates. And I think that the most appropriate people to tell us more about themselves and make an introduction is Mrs. Susan Harmsworth and Mrs. Mia Kirikos. So unmute Sue and Mia, and please introduce yourself and tell us some things about yourself and what you're doing now, how you spend your time, especially these unprecedented times.
So Stavros, thank you so much for inviting us to do this. And it's an exciting time in the industry. I will go very quickly because otherwise we'll be here all day, because it's 50 years this year since I started. So going back very fast, in the 60s, I was features editor of Vogue. And to cut a long story short, I ended up in Toronto via New York. And in 1970, I opened what would now be called a day spa. I had 80 staff on 4 floors. This was in Toronto. And then I opened another one in New York. And I was turning over $4 million in 1974, which if you multiply that was a lot of money. And one of the reasons it was, in my journey, I have taken learnings from every stage of everything I've done. And everything has led to another opportunity and the growth of this industry. And without being arrogant about it, I think I've been at the forefront of that growth for most of my career. So when I opened my day spa, nobody was even talking about the word spa. But I was lucky enough to have amazing European, Eastern European therapists, because back then they had to train medically. So they trained me. So when I did my training, and I had no background at all in therapy. So this is quite important, I think, for what we're going to talk about today, because that therapy training that I did that was from a very medical perspective has stood me in good stead all through my career. To cut a long story short, I sold that business. I came back to Europe in 1980, and I went to run a health resort, which was way ahead of its time. Minimum 7-day stays, doctors, nurses, physios, yoga, Pilates, about 150 therapists. I'm talking about now the early 80s. And I stayed there for several years and completely revolutionized it, doubled their bottom line, introduced much more modern therapies. And it was the beginning of my journey really into a very holistic world. And I mean that in the true sense of the word, because of bringing the medical, complementary health and beauty side all together. I then was headhunted to be managing director of a company designing for the cruise liners in 1988, 86, when that was turning from, if you like, concessions and fitness on cruise liners to much more serious spa. I found that difficult, so I didn't stay long because I couldn't implement the standards, and I've always been a very standards-led person. And with the ships, I think I had thousands of therapists at sea and hairdressers, and really the owners of those companies in those days did not see the necessity for training. So I started on my own, and long story short, I designed a spa way again in 1989, before people were talking about spas, but I saw the whole world changing. So stress in the 80s, stress became one of the main issues because women were going back into the workplace, people were traveling more, technology was starting. So spas really grew exponentially from, say, the mid to late 80s because of stress. And people were looking at relaxation and escapism. Then I had the fortunate, I really met with an amazing GM. And he wanted me to design a spa for him, but he also wanted product. Now, through that whole career I've just talked about, I did product about 4 or 5 times. So I was really up on product too. So that was Turnberry in Scotland, and which is still an amazing spa to this day and still wins a lot of awards. And that opened in 1991. And again, trying to speed up, we developed the first very holistic treatments. And it was such an amazing success that we had people from all over the world coming and wanting training and wanting the product. So I launched Spa in 1993, and we can be very fast on that one, because I sold it in 2017. And when I sold it, we had 700 spas in 70 countries. We were training between 5,000 and 8,000 therapists a year in postgraduate work. I had the factory in the UK manufacturing the whole Spa product line and exporting to 70 countries, and so on and so forth. So that takes us up to 2017. I'm supposed to then retire. However, the industry wouldn't let me retire, which was interesting. And also my passion is health, and is educating therapists and developing therapists, but integrative medicine has always really been my passion. And so the timing now is right. I mean, we're lucky in our industry, because all these things that have happened because of demographic changes. And this demographic change that we're in the middle of now, I think is going to change our world forever, and hopefully for better when we're through it. So I'm working, as you quite rightly said, on wellness destinations. They're not hotels with spas or wellness. And I think we have to talk about defining the word wellness going forward as well in this conversation. They're destination wellness. So I'm working on Amala, which is the ultra high net worth destination on the Red Sea for the ruler in Saudi. I'm working in advice, so I'm advising the owners really. So I'm on the advisory board for Amala. I'm on the advisory board for Trivananda in Thailand, which is going to be a new generation of wellness destination outside of Phuket on a beautiful 6 lakes with a mixture of community and residential, medical, wellness, very spiritual as well with Buddhist monks. And it's going to be a really interesting mix. I'm working on a whole community in Portugal yet to be announced, but that's going to be more about living as well as visiting. That's all biophilic farming and all that sort of thing. And I still sit on the board of the the Global Wellness Institute, the Global Wellness Summit, and Forbes. So plenty going on. And now I'll let Mia take over.
What a story! What a story, and what a legend into the worldwide wellness industry. The thing is that for sure, Sue, we will need you in Greece, and we will need you soon, because a lot of projects will come up in Greece over the next years. So, Mia, the stage is yours now.
Hey, I don't know if I can follow that act. I'll just say Kalispera to all my friends in Greece and the homeland. I'll briefly review the history here, because I do think Sue and I come at it in one way, even though we have very different backgrounds. We are very passionate about the business of wellness. And I think that's what's evolved in the last 2 decades, is that this is a real business. If it's not a business, it doesn't make money. It's a waste of everyone's time, even though we are very passionate about this field. But I'm inspired by my Greek heritage. My mother is from a little village called Kaloneri, which is about an hour west of Kastoria. My father is is near the Meteora in Kalambaka. That's where his family is from. Okay. My Yaya Eleni, who's 94, will be 95 in January, is here with us. In particular, has been a huge influence in my holistic health and wellness. She has natural remedies for everything from a stomach ache to congestion, and the list goes on. So my roots are very authentic. But like you said, Stavros, my career has been grounded in tourism. I grew up in a resort town just an hour north of Boston, and I've worked in restaurants, private clubs, clam shacks and lobster shacks, ice cream stores. Everything was in the world of service from the age of 12. I was later schooled in international relations, and later got my MBA much later at Cornell at the hotel school when 9/11 happened, which really helped me to rediscover my own purpose and my passion to help people live well. And so the following 20 years, I managed a large spa in New York City with destination style programming. I actually ran the first Exhale Mind Body Spa, and now there's 25 of them. I worked at Starwood Hotels and Resorts for 8 years, where I led the development of 6 international spa brands for internationally known hotel brands like Westin and Sheraton and St. Regis and W. I eventually ended up overseeing operations of workplace wellness deployments on the campuses of Fortune 500 companies like Google and Intel and others. So that really sort of gave me the practical side of companies trying to save on their healthcare costs by taking better care of their colleagues. Later, as you mentioned, served as Chief Brand Officer of SpaFinder Wellness, and that's where I merged both of my passions of brand strategy and marketing in the world of wellness. And there were 30,000 members of that collection, of which several were in Greece, including the Blue Palace in Crete, which was very, very well-known destination. Eventually launched my own consultancy where we strategically advise wellness-driven hospitality, tourism, lifestyle companies all on their business strategies around health, wellness, and hospitality. And then spent the last 2 years, as you said, as the global head of well-being for Hyatt Hotels, focusing both commercially, but also for 130,000 associates around the world. So it's been a fun and furious ride that has brought me here today. And I'm just very honored to be here with Sue, who is a goddess to me, but also in one of my favorite places in the world, our homeland of Greece. So thank you.
Yeah. So, Sue and Mia, thank you very much for being in that panel today, because what I'm seeing here is two people that are down to earth. They have their hearts open to share things, and this is wellness industry. And this is what we are trying to do here in Greece, to share ideas, things, envision the future, and support people to have a better life. So again, thank you very much. And let's start our conversation and discussion at the moment. And I will start from Sue again. And Sue, as you said, it is true that the people is the power of every company to the road of success. And as you said, you managed hundreds of therapists, receptionists, specialists, all of the previous years, all around the world. Do you think that the skills that the people who work in the wellness industry and they have to acquire changed over the years? And do you think that nowadays love, empathy, and leaderships are the skills that we have to focus and develop in order to meet the demands and needs of the guests?
So Stavros, I think we have to divide it up a little bit. Leadership is an issue on its own. And one of the things I've felt very strongly about over the years, firstly, at the moment, the expectation of the consumer is higher than it's ever been. And that's because they've traveled more, they've seen more, whichever nationality we're talking about, and they've been to so many spas and wellness destinations. So I think what we have to accept is, compared to 20 years ago, the expectation of the guest is really high, which obviously makes it much harder. The other thing I believe is, I think we've always needed empathy. I think kindness and love is another thing altogether. But the other thing I feel quite strongly about is there's been this progression issue, if you like, where therapists always want to move on. And we have to somehow stop that, because our therapists are so valuable. And, they go through such amazing training, especially in Greece, where you still have that history of anatomy, physiology, and doing proper training and all of that stuff. They're almost like nurses and in their level of expertise. And now with wellness, I think we're going to have to teach them a whole different skill set. The other thing, without attacking, I am going to attack hoteliers a little bit, because hoteliers have sidelined their spa therapists and they've treated them almost like I don't want to, belittle anybody, everyone's really important, but they haven't given them the credibility that they need. The other problem you've got in Greece is seasonality. And the training of those therapists now to raise their game for all the lifestyle issues, the mental health issues, the anxiety issues, the lifestyle diseases, 1 in 2 people going to be touched by cancer, type 2 diabetes, all these things, our expectation of those therapists is huge. And if we don't take responsibility for training them in this skill set, and empathy is difficult to train, but I think with empathy, if we used to have 5 levels of training. And I think as an industry, we're going to have to look at that again, because when they come out of college, their skill set is really quite baseline. And only through training, and it isn't just therapy training, it's all the people skills, the language skills. So I think with wellness, I was thinking about this for hotels as opposed to wellness destinations, and there is a difference because the purpose of people going is different. If you go to a wellness destination, you have a reason for going normally. Whereas if you're going to a resort hotel, your reasons are slightly different. But if you're going to do programs and you're going to offer wellness, however we define it, you're going to have to deliver what you promise. So I think less is more. I think you've got to realize who your market is. Language skills are going to be an even bigger issue, because when you're talking about contraindications, you're talking about people's wellness issues, their anxiety issue. That's a much harder delivery. I mean, when we taught our most advanced courses, we taught to recognize personality types. So we took the Chinese and the Ayurvedic principles, if you like, to help the therapists recognize those personality traits. You've got to teach them to deflect negative energy, which is another skill. And the young ones, we have to teach them life skills, even if it's with trying to put old heads on young shoulders. We've got to try, because they're treating people, usually older than themselves, with a different set of problems. I don't know if I'm answering your question. Leadership's a whole other issue. And leadership, again, in hotels has been difficult for spa directors, because they're often trodden on by above. And so I'm going to throw a little thing out there to the hotel industry. I don't know if we've got hoteliers on the call, that wellness now will be the whole of the hotel. It's not going to be a department over there, and excuse my language, with lots of little girls, as they perceive it, some of those GMs, only some, not all, lots of little girls doing, I don't know what they're doing over there. They've got to have the respect, and the whole hotel is going to be about wellness now, the food, the sleep, the rooms, everything. And you should be using those people, to help your other staff, because they're really good at that. And the other thing is, in Greece, you need to extend your season. And the whole of this industry and the programs you can do and the experts you have, you need to hang on to those. You can't have them leaving in October and coming back in April. They're not going to do that. You've got to keep them. You've got to keep training them, because it's an ongoing thing. It's building blocks. I think I'll let Mia take over now, because...
Thank you, Sue. And I would like to, sorry, Mia, to tell you, Sue, that I was in a position the last 10 years to collaborate with some people of your team from ESPA, because ESPA opened some spas in Greece. And I will talk about GMs. When you were sending the training program before the opening and to do the training before the closure, the GMs always were trying to make the days of training shorter and not bigger. And that means that some of them, as you said, they not understand the training and the spa department, how it can actually support and help a hotel. And this is a real problem in Greece, that we have very, very, very good therapists, really excellent therapists, but they lack a professional wellness training. So yes, Mia, please.
You're muted.
Whoop. Now, please.
I
please.
know you have another question for me, but I think this is such an important point. Two mistakes I see regularly. It's been around the world, and Greece in particular, for whatever reason, has shortened that life cycle, which is tricky to do when you have like 70% labor costs.
Yeah.
It is critical that the spa director is a member of the executive committee, just like a food and beverage director would be, or a head of housekeeping. And the second thing is, they keep shortening the pre-opening time and the training that's required for them to be successful. And then they are frustrated by the lack of business performance. And so the reality is, those two things need to be eradicated in Greece for them to realize their potential in the wellness market. So I could not resist having to say that and echo that with my friend.
Thank you that someone else telling the same thing. So thank you, Mia. So Mia, as I said in the beginning, one of your presentations back in June was about love and business. And you were talking about the new ROI, return of investment, but you will tell us what it is. Could you please explain more about this and how love and empathy can enhance our mental and body health and productivity into this new era? So what is your advice and what you have to tell us about this?
Sure. So just like for me, I am equally right and left brained. I need to understand the science and business of wellness in order to advocate for it. And so love and empathy are warm, touchy-feely words, but the reality is they too actually impact business performance. I actually had a theory of this early in the year when pandemic first started. I did about 2 months of research and learned for companies that actually institutionalize love, which is really just a supreme form of positivity, into their daily management practices, it literally impacts the bottom line. Big companies that we could speak to, global brands. That's a topic for another time. You can find that on YouTube. But what you asked was, I discovered this new ROI, and this was actually, there was an author, Steve Farber, who wrote the book, Love is Just Damn Good Business. And this was his term. And he said, there's reciprocity on investment, which really simply means that if you do what you love in the service of others, that love will come back to you in your business in terms of performance, in the form of meeting your financial objectives. And it's just, I think it was such a compelling phrase for the year of 2020, because we've all grown a little kinder, a little nicer, a little more patient with one another. And it's a nicer form of ROI that you're basically expecting what you put out in the world, you're going to get back. And that's ultimately what reciprocity on investment is. Greece is a great example of this. Hospitality is in your blood to ancient Greece. I've walked the streets of Ia and Santorini and climbed to the top of the Meteora. And I even met farmers on the side of the street between Thessaloniki and Kastoria before you guys built your superhighway. And people are so eager to care for you as a tourist. They serve people because they love to do it. And there's economies in that. There's financial return in that. And I think there's just basically great data behind the forms of positivity like love, gratitude, and hope, and so forth, that I think is inherent already to Greek's culture, as long as they leverage it the right way and really a business-minded approach.
Good. So that's a good word and nice example to follow. And I think that most of Greeks are following. Our hospitality is very well known, and that allowed me to go to Sue. And yes, as we know, Greece is a worldwide destination. That's for sure. The history of wellness started here, and the modern medicine. What is your advice to the owners, investors, and GMs in order to support their people to develop the new skills that are required to implement all these new wellness modalities that you were referring in the previous question? And What is, in your opinion, the advantages that Greece has?
Well, I think we've spoken a lot about the advantages. I mean, the advantages are climate, amazing food, amazing places generally, wonderful hospitality naturally within the people. However, I come back, and it is all a bit about the same, I'm sorry. I think that we're going to see a trend away from normal resorts. We're going to be looking, so instead of having a hotel resort, it'll be more a wellness resort. And I think we're going to define the difference between wellness, hotel and spa, resort and spa. We can't all just suddenly use the word wellness when actually what we've got is spa. So when I advise people about what they're building, I always look at the market first. Decide what nationalities you have and look at those cultures as well as your own culture. Because all the cultures are different. We think there are some similarities, but even among the therapists, they're different. So if you've got a big nationality of a certain kind, then you're going to need people with those language skills. I said that before. If you're going to be offering programs, if you're going to say, I've got a sleep program, I've got a detox program, I've got a fertility program, whatever it is, and Greece is very well placed with its therapists to offer these things, but then you've got to deliver it. So I, again, think less is more. Decide what it is and who you are. You can't be all things to all people, but look at your market very carefully. And then training. It is training. And that's why I really think you've got to work harder at retention of the therapists, whether they're complementary practitioners, yoga practitioners, whether they're massage therapists, beauty therapists. All these trends are coming full circle, and you can't do them all. But people will come back for experts. At the end of the day, I ran Greyshot Hall in the 1980s, and sadly it closed just recently. However, I went back as a guest to do their microbiome program, and it was falling around their ears, the place, as far as quality of build, quality of facilities and so on. But they had the best therapists, the best nutritionists, the best naturopath, the best acupuncturist, and the best team of massage therapists and facial therapists. And that program was full the whole time because of those therapists. And I can't emphasize enough, I think we've got to get a much more integrative approach to the whole team. And we've got to teach them the life skills. But I come back to language. So if it's one thing doing a consultation in a treatment room when you're doing a massage. It's a completely different skill set when you're doing a medical consultation or a wellness consultation. So if you've got a lot of Russians or you've got a lot of English or whatever they are, either do a pre-arrival questionnaire about what their expectations of your wellness programs are, so that and at least have those language skills available. But when it comes to love, empathy, and leadership is a different ball game altogether. And what I would like to see in the industry is far less of the good therapists wanting to go into management, because 9 times out of 10, they don't make natural managers, which isn't a criticism, because I think it's much more important they're there making revenue as therapists, because that's what people come back for. They come back for the people. But if you're going to push them into the management area, then you need to teach them and you need to give them those skills. But as far as Greece is concerned, I think extending the season, and I've got a couple of projects, which again, I can't really talk about, but very close to you in geographical area, where they're doing exactly that. And they think that they can extend the season probably by 6 to 8 weeks either end, which means you've got a much smaller gap in the middle and you probably can retain them. But retention, training, people skills, and being valued. Being valued, I think, is really important. We can talk about leadership at some point because I have opinions on that too.
Thank you so much, Sue. So expertise, and training. So Mia, you talked about our well-known hospitality and our warm, authentic, and caring. Do you think that these characteristics are enough? Or as Sue told, we need to develop more skills. And what is your advice again to owners, GMs, and how do you think the executives can adapt all these, mentality about wellness in order to help therapists and wellness in hotels and outside of the hotels and companies?
Well, first of all, I totally agree with Sue on the need for training for operational success. I can't stress that enough, and making sure you're putting the right people in the right roles, without question. But as a country, I think Greece's greatest opportunity is its marketing and in its telling of the story. If I may be so bold, as I understand some of these officials may be on our call today, I would love to give a piece of free advice to your Ministry of Tourism, which I know you have great people that work in the Ministry of Tourism that want to actually elevate Greece to a global wellness destination. But it would be this. Yes, Greece has the longstanding history that you just said, one of the longest and richest of the world. You can map back their belief in wellness and taking to the waters back to ancient Greece. You have beautiful natural resources, your honey, your teas, your olive oils, your oceans, your sunsets, the heritage you have is incredible. But what's hard for people to understand if they're not in Greece is how it feels. That is why you need to market and share with the world. Everyone from hoteliers to owners to tourism officials, they need to partner, and they need to not only market what they offer, but how they do it. There's so much competition in Europe alone. How does it make you feel? What are the benefits of the modalities that Greece offers? That's when they'll get the return on investment that we're talking about. Because, we need to do this with authentic love in our hearts. And Greece is one of the most loving cultures of the world. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about making sure you're telling the story and sharing what you can offer the world. And that needs to be a partnership from each property to the regions, to the government, to the Ministry of Tourism.
I see. Thank you, Mia. So you were talking in the beginning about the definitions.
Yes.
And I'm sure that a lot of hoteliers and investors as well are not so clear what is a hotel spa, what is a wellness hotel, what is a destination hotel. And could you please, enlighten us and give that, definitions? We know that Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute gave us some definitions, but according to your experience, of course, and you're board member of all these institutions, could you please give us the exact definitions so everybody knows what it is what?
Well, let's try and define first the terminology, because I think now we're at a pivotal point of change. I think it was coming. I think it's been coming for a long time. And I think people were looking for an alternative word to spa because everything was a spa. It took 15 years to define the word spa. If you remember, one treatment room and one exercise bike was a spa. And then you had a 5,000 square meter, all singing thermal experiences, treatment rooms, and so on and so forth. Now I think we've gone full circle on quite a few things. So first of all, and I've been doing this with projects as well, where we've maybe had the big brands, and I can assure you that if you look at, I'll name a few, Six Senses, Mandarin, Aman, even Four Seasons, and some of the smaller brands, I've probably forgotten a whole load. They're all now really focusing on that word wellness and what is wellness, and oh, we've got to catch up and we've got to do it. And I can assure you they're doing that because I'm seeing it all and working with them. Within that, we now have to define what's what. So even the word beauty is back, because aesthetics, and even the word aesthetics. So we're talking about invasive aesthetics, non-invasive aesthetics, holistic face and beauty, personalized face and beauty. I'm not answering your question, but I'm just giving you some of the problems that you have to define.
Yeah. Terminology. Yeah.
And then you come on to gym and sport, and in Greece you have a huge opportunity with all your outdoor facilities and your sailing and your diving and all of that piece. But even if you talk about fitness, you know, personal training is huge now. We're not designing gyms anymore in the way that we used to. There's so much available now. Then you've got mindfulness, you know, and everything to do with mindfulness, mental health. And to my view, I call it light wellness and serious wellness. So serious cognitive health is going to be neuroscience and all of that piece, right down to breath work and yoga. I'm not belittling yoga either, because you need advanced yoga teachers, but it's that whole piece of mindfulness, mental health, anxiety, and so on. Then we've got to define the medical piece, because that piece is important as well, because people are wanting results and they're wanting diagnostics and all that piece. And then what's the difference between well-being and wellness? So from a hotel's perspective, I think that if you're a hotel with a fantastic spa, and there's loads of hotels with amazing 2,000-3,000 square meter spas, then be a spa. And if you want to stick on a bit of aesthetics, you know, because you want a point of difference, or you want some great personal training, then great, identify that. And then if you want a bit of nutrition, you're going to look at your, but don't call it wellness unless you're offering wellness. Destinations then become the more important wellness destinations, which I think is going to be a future trend. And I think a lot of the hotel destinations are going to go that route. And that's when people go there with a purpose. They've either want to make a life change, they need to lose weight, they've got mental issues, they usually have an issue and they have a reason. It could be bereavement, it could be divorce, it could be all sorts of things. But you go to a destination wellness either for a reason or for prevention. I've done it all my life. Since I was 28 years old, I've gone every year and I've done a serious program of one kind or another. It might be a mental thing, it might be a physical thing, but those are destinations and you normally have some medical input. There's the more clinical side of Germany and Austria, where you've got the Lanzerhof and the Maya clinics, and, you know, with all the doctors and all the diagnostics, hospitals close by and so on, so forth. And I think they have a huge place and a huge part to play. I've set up an organisation in the UK called the Standards Authority for Touching Cancer Care. And I feel passionate about that because of 1 in 2 people going to be touched by cancer. And again, the therapists weren't being trained. And I feel very strongly about the training standards and that we need to address that. And I think for all you hoteliers, if you train your therapists in cancer care, you're starting the empathy journey with all the other issues, because they learn so much about themselves and about how to treat people. Hotels in cities, we can argue that forever. I mean, I think hotels in cities are dependent on the local market as well. Interestingly, in London at the moment, most of the 5-star hotels are seriously low occupancy, but the spas are busy, which is interesting. So the spas are making more money than F&B, and they're making more money than other departments. So there's a change for you. we can go on forever, but I think you get my gist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think for Greece, you've got a huge opportunity because you've got those beautiful locations, those beautiful resorts. You just need to knock the hospitality guys a bit in another direction. They'll be fine if you push them hard enough. Get some women in there to push those chauvinist GMs a little bit further over.
Thank you, Sue, for this input.
Do you think I could just add to that before we move to the next question?
Yes,
Is that
yes.
okay? Just a couple of things, because I think Sue did a great job touching on it broadly. I think for your particular listeners, 2 resources I would recommend. One is the International Spa Association has done a fairly good job of segmenting the different kinds of spa and wellness properties, from club spas to hotel resort spas to destination spas. So if people are trying to get their arms around that and they've sized those segments, you know, it's just, I think that's a good overview. And I think the Global Wellness Institute, their research has really talked about the size of the wellness economy, its different segments from fitness and physical activity to mind-body health to food and beverage to wellness, tourism, and travel, which is particularly important to your entities. And I just think practically, regardless of how the industry has defined it, I think, you know, for me, I think wellness are the steps you take to care for your own personal health and wellness, from how you eat, sleep, move, think. And when you have medical issues to address, that can be part of that. And well-being's the outcome everyone's trying to achieve. We're all trying to be well, right? So I think those 2 things, because I think the thing that Sue and I have to struggle with daily is that there's so many information sources now thrown at you in so many terms. I think it's helpful to identify these organizations upon which probably the most educated people now rely. And so I'm passing that on for your audience.
Great. So Mia, let's.
Stavros, on top of that, I would say,
Yeah.
There's a danger in all the information. There's information overload. You have, if you have a new investor and a new project, you have to be forward thinking and visionary and think of your own concept and what you're going to achieve. Stop reading all the stuff, because otherwise
you will be lost.
Yeah.
True. So Mia, I will ask you a practical question, and if you can tell us, you know, in a bullet points. So what will be your method, in brief, if you have to hire, train, and develop people for a new wellness project in Greece, let's say, for example, and what changes are happening into these people's operation sector, you know, the HR, you know, the hiring process and the training is changed. As Mia said, you know, we have to deal with people that will experiencing, you know, cancer or any other illnesses. And especially after this health crisis, the demands will be more higher. So in your opinion, what do you need to train, and how you gonna, what will be your method? Can you please?
Sure. I mean, I would say there's been positive development in this. It used to be that you would only go and seek out talent that had the long experience, the skills, and the certifications. And I think that's important in some roles. But I think we are learning that we can source talent and operational assistance from other service-driven industries. I mean, that's everything from hospitality, consulting. There's food and beverage management can come over to the wellness side, because Sue rightfully said, you know, sometimes those make the best managers, and they don't necessarily need to have all the technical skills. They just know how to lead that skills, much like a food and beverage manager leads an abundant staff. The number one thing that I hire for now is emotional intelligence. When it comes to hiring, training, and developing people, we gear our HR practices to understanding if these people have the ability to feel or anticipate how their customers will feel and adjust their products and services effectively. It's critical in corporate settings, but absolutely in the hospitality setting now, it's absolutely critical. And you can't teach emotional intelligence. You either have it or you don't, and you need to know how to interview for it. And there's behavioral interviewing styles that enables that to happen. Skills are secondary to me at this point. Yes, there are roles that need to come with certifications, and there's protocols and so forth, but I cast a broad net now when I'm looking for things like marketing and finance and HR. You know, I think having business skills are important for particular positions, and operational expertise, the art of service, and emotional intelligence is important for other kinds of roles. And both can be found in the world of wellness and hospitality.
Good.
I totally agree with Mia about emotional intelligence. We actually persuaded a couple of the big corporates to change their interviewing documentation for the spa and wellness departments to include, I mean, obviously I think like Mia that it should be throughout, but it's important in the spa and wellness, and you can measure it. There's a guy, if you want to read, called Ruben Baron, and he was one of the original people who set up emotional intelligence psychometric testing. And he came and worked with us for about a year, and that was hugely invaluable.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Sue. So time flies, you know, we can speak for hours here. I'm going to my last question, because you know, we're worldwide, we have all these health crises. In Greece at the moment, we're in a lockdown, and we will be until January 7th, 1 month from now as well. So we all think that the world is changing and will change more after this health crisis. I think the vaccine is out, and you know, in about a year, we will be in normality. We don't know how this normality will be, but here we are. So Sue, could you please tell us about the future of wellness in a few sentences? And is wellness going to play a major role, especially after the mental health report that we had from the Global Wellness Summit recently? So how do you see wellness going to play each role over the next years?
Well, I personally, in spite of COVID, which, you know, is obviously been a crisis for us all, it's also been an education for a lot of people and finding themselves and finding resilience. I've been talking about resilience for a long time, resilience in our children. I think what will happen going forward is health systems are in crisis, and so people are going to take ownership of their own health. And I think that immune system building, prevention, living longer well, I'm getting to that sort of mid-70s age where I start to think about that. I don't want to live long if I'm not well. So health is wealth. And I think it's going to now be part of our future. We've done terrible things to our planet. We've done terrible things to our soil, which probably in Greece you're ahead of the game with organic growing and things like that. We've done terrible things to our air and our water. And all of these things are going to be key going forward. And I think there's more and more people are now recognize that. I see it with my grandchildren, and I've got grandchildren from age of 9 up to 23. So very interesting watching the different generations. And I think future generations are going to, wellness and health are going to be absolutely key to them. I mean, it's been interesting their behavior during this time. Yes, we've had the extreme ones who haven't been able to cope, but I've been amazed at how my lot, they're 16, 19, 20, 22, and 24, the boys, how good they've been and how tolerant they've been and how resilient they've been. And going forward for our industry, all of that's going to be really important. Immune system building, prevention, ownership of your own health, taking responsibility for your family values, valuing friendships, all those things.
So, Mia, I'm going more to ask you about wellness and in the corporate level, because recently the Prime Minister of Greece announced that we would like Greece not only to be a country that people are visited, for holidays, but a country for people to come and work. And as you said, like with the climate and the food and all these in, good scenery, I think that will be a good way to go. So, do you think that the way we work will change, and wellness? What is the position of wellness into the workplaces? I think that you've done really, really good work in the Global Wellness Initiative about that. Could you please tell us your vision about the future of wellness in work?
I mean, absolutely. And I think Greece has great potential here, just as good of the potential as it does in the hospitality side to realize wellness. In many ways, we need to shift, and I really do think COVID and 2020 will be is the great catalyst for this shift. We need to shift our thinking from programs, products, and services that we offer to our colleagues and hope that they will use it, to shifting to a culture that's well. That's very different. You can offer gyms and time to have a workout or healthy food in your cafeterias or whatever. But if you operationalize management practices where people do not feel that they can leave their desks, or they have to juggle decisions on doing work and taking care of their children and so forth, that's when the programs fail because the culture is not there. So I think whether you're working well, living well, or visiting locally or internationally, wellness is yours, is Greece's for the taking. It just needs to be celebrated more. And many of the practices you already adopt from a way of life in Greece, from taking siestas in the middle of the day and other things that you do. Actually, you can map back the roots of health and wellness, as those actually have great efficacy and potentially could be adopted in a very innovative way in Greece. I will say this, and I'm going to say something controversial, and I hope you all know at this point that I'm saying this with huge love in my heart. The downside to Greece, and I'm speaking of generations of experience with my family in northern Greece and the huge family of immigrants that we have here, we are not short on ego, particularly the men, no offense. And I think Greece, with humility, stands to educate the world on the benefits of living, breathing, and working in Greece. You have the credibility, you have the history. It's your story to tell on a global scale. You can reintroduce your products and services almost like you're doing it for the first time, but really focus on how it makes people feel. And to do this, your love, your empathy, your leadership, that will all be essential for Greece to realize its potential. And I am rooting for you with my blue and white pom-poms from the United States, and obviously on my next visit to Greece.
More than welcome. I have to tell you that you're more than welcome in Greece, and I will be your host here for sure, 100%. And before we go to a couple of questions, and I think that we have Frank Pitsikalis in our audience, and I would like from him, if can appear and have a question for Sue or Mia. Frank.
Hi there. Hi.
Kalistara. Hello from Greece.
Hi there. Great session, ladies.
So do you have any question for Sue or Mia, or anything about what we have discussed?
Yeah, I think these are a lot of great points, and you know, as we look in hospitality, it's interesting. I think with COVID, they've really looked to the spa industry because we had all of these processes and everything sort of figured out. And so hoteliers were sort of thinking, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to ease the, you know, the concerns of the guest? And the spas were already doing that. And iSpa had created resources about reopening strategies and tools in order to you know, to serve. And that model was actually used by hoteliers in all of their departments. So I think the world can learn from, you know, the spa and wellness industry in a lot of ways. I think we're going to see wellness become core. As Sue mentioned, it's not a spa with it's not a hotel with a spa. We're going to see spas with hotels. The room will actually be the amenity. And I think that wellness intention, you know, for me, I think that's what we're going to see, the huge trend. We're on a huge curve. You know, we're so grateful that pioneers like Sue have sort of, you know, blazed the path, because I think the future for wellness and spa is so bright, especially, you know, in light of what we've gone through in the past year. So so I applaud both of you. Great points, a great session, and certainly look forward to Greece becoming a wellness destination, to market Greece as wellness, you know, home of thalassotherapy and so many other things that I think it's just a natural destination for wellness.
Thank you very much, Frank. And this is what we're trying to do. And I have to tell you that I'm involved in a cluster here in Greece that we're trying to privatize the thermal spring waters in Greece in order to try and develop the thermal spring waters and try to develop the new medical and wellness concepts. So the next 2 or 3 years, of course, we will see developments, and for sure, we will ask for your support and help. And the last question for me, Sue and Mia, is the same question. Do you think that your journey into the wellness, the last, 20, 25, 30, 35 years, helped you to overcome these health crises and have a more clear, head and view of the things? Because to hear this from your lips, it's really, really important, because this will give guidelines to us and other people to see how we can overcome that. Thank you, please.
Well, for me, definitely, no question. So if you think of my age, 76 nearly.
With that gorgeous skin.
That's an S-bar. That's an S-bar face.
Hard to interrupt, but I had to jump in.
I've always believed, like Mia, I had a mother who was a pediatric nurse, and I had a grandmother who was a herbalist. So I had traditional medicine and naturopathy from a child, and I was treated that way. And I was born at the end of the war. So if you think about it, I grew up getting milk from the farm and, fruit and vegetables from the farmers and so on and so forth. So in my lifetime, we've destroyed all the natural things that we needed. So we've screwed up our health. And basically, what the science is now telling us is that something like, and I will be general here, 60% of lifestyle diseases are preventable. So as we know now, type 2 diabetes is reversible. 60% of cancers are preventable. 60% of recurring cancer is preventable. The anxiety and the mental health issues are a lot to do with lack of resilience. And I've been lucky that in my lifetime, and because of my journey with spa and wellness, I've practiced most of the things that I preach. So, we've always cooked at home. I've never really eaten fast food or that sort of thing. I've grown things locally. I've always practiced meditation and mindfulness I had my children naturally doing breath work only. So from the age of 22, I've practiced all kinds of meditative and mindfulness, and I've led the most enormously stressful life that you can think of. 2 divorces, paid off 2 husbands, built 2 businesses, sold 2 businesses, but lots of
As we know
stress.
now, type 2 diabetes is
Oh, sorry.
No.
No, I heard a recording. On a plane every week, screwing up my microbiome and all the rest of it. But by going to health resorts, clinics, wellness destinations over my lifetime and practicing this, I'm going to touch enormous wood, but I have high energy. I'm still working in spite of not supposed to be in all those things. And I'm really healthy. So I think we have to take ownership of our own health. So yes, all those things have really helped in my journey. And also I think my empathy, my leadership skills, the way I built teams, the positivity, the waking up every day and being grateful, all of those things. I'm a huge believer in positivity, and you know, what you think and how you think will happen. That's
Thank
enough.
you.
I could go on forever with that.
I think, yeah, and we are humans, and I have to share with you and all my friends that the thing that I'm in the wellness industry, of course, like 15 years, but you know, the last 10 years is more important and seriously with me, helped me to overcome, you know, some very serious illnesses into my family. And I found it that I was really lucky to be in that industry. And I have to tell you that because I'm searching and I'm reading a lot of what you, Mia, and what you, Sue, telling and sharing with people, I learned a lot from you. And this is what I'm trying to do now in Greece, to learn from you and maybe from me what I learned from you. So this is how we're sharing in our industry. I truly believe that wellness is helping us and helped me. You know, my personal story told me that helped me a lot to overcome, you know, these difficulties. So Mia.
The short answer is yes, absolutely. I think over the last 25 years, I've added tools to the toolbox that my grandmother and my mother gave me. Starting with my grandmother, if I had a stomach ache, she'd warm oatmeal and put it on my stomach. If we had warts on our hands, there were tomatoes that we would wrap. And if we had congestion, she would give us a massage. But now, because in the corporate world and how fast life moves, I've had to find resources that help me stay well in smaller pieces. And so waking up in the morning and meditating for 10 to 20 minutes a day. I was always a preacher of meditation. I'm a new practitioner of it relatively for the last couple of years. I swear by it. Then I have a slow cup of coffee. Yes, it's a cup of coffee just to wake myself up. It's not lemon water, Sue. I know you'd yell at me, but people ask all the time. But I do that as sort of nurturing myself. I then have to go move for a half hour, swim, walk, hike, whatever. And if I'm struggling with something, I will journal it out. And every day I have to connect with someone I love, no matter where I am in the world. And those are practices I use every day, you know, very practically. But I really do believe when I look at the people who've called into this call, I look at my Greek brother in Canada, Frank, who is CEO of Resort Suite. And he is a technologist, really, that's changed how wellness and spa actually enables these products and services. And when I look at that industry that is now such a force in our own industry, you know, that gives me hope for the future. I look at Julie Bach, who is the founder of Wellness for Cancer, and I've got to be part of one of her founding advisory board members. You know, I think that she just got the world to pay attention, much like Sue has championed as well, just the importance of treating people with cancer. I think of all the supporting industries and the other vertical industries that make wellness possible. And I think it's the most exciting time. I think 2020 is indeed a catalyst, and the world needs us all in many different ways, both personally with the tools that we use from our toolboxes, but also our business tools because we know they work. So really wishing everyone in Greece well in light of the times.
Thank you. So I could talk, you know, 4 hours, but unfortunately, everybody, has a program, and I would like to thank you from the deep of my heart for the 2 days conversation and talk. And you have to be sure that in Greece, we're working towards these directions. And for sure, we're going to need your support and your help over the next years. We will be in touch. We will speak about technology, one of the next talks, and Frank for sure will be one of our participants. And I would like to tell that Zangi, as an ambassador here in Greece for World Wellness Weekend, is one of the organizations that are trying to make wellness for all around the world, and trying to beat all these illnesses and try people to move daily in their lives, sleep well. So things happening in Greece, and I think from now on will happen with people that know what they're doing, know the business, and know how to move us forward. Thank you very much. Be safe, be healthy, and hope to see you in person soon in the future. And more than welcome in Greece. I will invite you, and I will be your host probably into 2021.
Evaristo Stavros, and great
Parakalo.
seeing you. I'm so glad we were able to make this work, and thank you to everyone who listened today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.